If I put a a number between 1 and 10, where number 1 is the most important and 10 is the most irrelevant post that I have ever posted, that I've ever done, this is a number 1. All right. This is arguably one of the. Look, I'm happy to say that I think this is the most important post I have ever done. So, because it's going to be a good one, I'm a bit cramped up here. It's not about this. I found it. I always kind of knew, and I had these things I wanted to read out, but I never found the right time for some reason. Bang! It just fell into place. Folks, Simon Dan, the other day when I was listening to what you were saying when I did my post, and one of the things you said was, it is one of the most predictable things. I hope you've got evidence, Paul, right? And I said, it's not predictable at all. Right there. I pick up on everything. On everything. I don't hear words that don't register. Everything registers. I notice everything, right? Now, I've gone back and forth with you a few times. Enough times to know that you think you know things, but you don't. Egos. Outside. Me, you, everybody. This is not anybody's fault. This is not people's fault. This has been happening since people a long time. Let me read something. Please listen. This is about the speed of light. I'm going to be reading about the tides, but this is the best example I've got of what I'm saying. So let's not waste any time. Listen to this. It's about measuring the speed of light. A second method is by means of the constant of aberration, which gives the ratio of the velocity of Earth in its orbit to the velocity of light. Nobody made any sense of that. This is what they do. They're giving people half-assed explanations for a bit of everything, but in those explanations, they're never concrete, proper, logical explanations, and then they're throwing things like this in. People are thinking that they are understanding the science, but they are not. With the moon of gravity and the water, you are about to see what I'm saying. Let me read this one more time. A second method is by means of the constant of aberration, which gives the ratio of the velocity of Earth in its orbit to the velocity of light. Don't even try. Don't even try to analyze, to break this down. It's pure BS. Simon Dan, it's always been bugging me. Why is it that you keep telling me that the tides are predictable, that this is doing that the other is doing the other? And why is it that I'm always coming back and it feels like I'm just bang, 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 bang? Here's the thing. Whoa. Calm down. I'm right. But this is not about that, right? The info that you have been given explaining to you why the moon is doing the tides was wrong. But not only is it wrong, you're going to see what I mean. As we go through it, now that I'm going to show you why it is that you believe that you're right, and that what you believe, the explanations that you have been given, are logical, I'm going to show you that they are far from logical and that they are wrong. I pay attention to detail. I just did this about 44 minutes, and the sound was, the first 3 or 4 minutes was perfect, and then it just dropped. The sound just dropped. I've had to do it all again, but it's good because I've done it once and I know I can cut the corners. Folks, this is important. Please listen. It was nobody's fault. This is what they are doing. One more time, and then we're going to go on to the tides. Speed of light, a method of measuring. A second method is by means of the constant of aberration, which gives the ratio of the velocity of Earth in its orbit to the velocity of light. And people are thinking this means something. Listen up. Dorothy, seriously, buckle up. Ha ha! Where's my glasses? Where are my glasses? I actually spent some money and got a pair of Ralph Lauren reading glasses. Hey, look, I deserve something, right? Stop it. The tides, the ceaseless ebb and flow of ocean waves, by Bart J. Bok, 1961. If anybody knows Bart J. Bok, give him a big slap upside the head from me. That would be dandy. Listen, folks, there's only one way of doing this. We have this. We don't have to worry about that because that's the pathetic bulge. And from there to there to there, it's not going to take long. This is arguably the most important post that I have ever done because we are hovering right over the root of the problem. The tides. When we come to a thing, I won't say anything. I'm just going to read it and then I'll go, did you see what was wrong there? The periodic rise and fall of the sea in the rhythmic pattern that we call the tides is among the most striking of natural phenomena. Men became aware of the tides and marveled at them long before they had the least idea of what caused them. The ancient Chinese attributed them to the respiration of a huge earth monster. Do you remember I once said it's like, right? According to the Scandinavian sagas, Thor, the god of aerial forces, produced tides as he alternately raised the waters of the sea by blowing upon them and then let them fall back again. In and back the same way. This is not what, this is just, huh? Though the mystery of the tides has not been completely solved, we now have a good idea of how they arise. No, they don't. We can measure them quite accurately. We can predict the time of their ebb and flow, yet the tides still represent, as in ages past, an irresistible force with which men in various parts of the world must always reckon. A big ship in harbour must often wait for slack water to approach its pier. Otherwise, strong tidal currents might cause a crash. Where there is a great range between high and low tide, as in the Bay of Fundy, all port activities may have to be practically suspended at intervals so that vessels may not be stranded in low water. And I have been stranded in low water with Dan and Rowley, Elliot Heads. Went out in my 3.95 tinny with a 30 on the back. Big heavy guy, but muscle. Darren Roll. And Dan, muscle. Myself, muscle. We got out of the mouth. It was like a one road wave after another. Now what happened? Darren's a big lad, right? We got hit by a wave. I would have had it. A wave come, sideswiped us. Darren thought we were going over, so he jumped overboard. We're talking in the chop, in the freaking. He grabs hold of the side, so he's pulling the boat. I'm like, back now. So managed to slowly turn around so as to not chop his legs up with the prop. Slowly, like he managed, I think Dan helped him up or something, and we got into where the shallows, and little breather. Of course, the tide was dropping. We got stuck. 9 in the morning, I think it's a hot day. 9 in the morning, we're on these sand flats where the tide drops near Elliot Head's beach, the main beach, and we were there from just gone 9 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. Bang! In the middle of these sandbanks. It's a bit too far to walk anywhere all day. That was, look, it just reminded, look, this is important. It just reminded me of that day. It was so funny. When he threw over. Right, sorry. Right. Otherwise, strong tidal currents might cause a crash. Where there is a great range between high and low tide, as in the Bay of Fundy, all port activities may have to be practically suspended at intervals so that vessels may not be stranded in low water. In certain cases, tides advance so rapidly and with such force that it is quite literally a matter of life and death to know when high tide is to be expected. The ocean tides are brought about by the gravitational attraction between the Earth and two heavenly bodies, the Moon and the Sun. In brackets, the crust of the Earth is also affected by this attraction, but its movement is so slight that special instruments must be used to detect it. Bullshit. 1961. What instruments, what special instruments would they use? Listen, you'll see, it is not the moon that is moving the water. We're getting close to the first one. Right. The ocean tides are brought about by the gravitational attraction between the Earth and two heavenly bodies. After that, the Earth's sister planets and the stars and all the other objects in the skies also attract our planet and are attracted by it. But they are either too small or too far off to have any appreciable influence on the waters of the sea. The tide raising effect of the sun is only about 0.46 times that of the moon, in spite of the fact that the mass of the sun is about 28 million times greater. According to Newton's law of universal gravitation, the force of attraction that various bodies have for one another is directly proportional to the product of their masses, but inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. My hand goes up. What does that mean? What does that mean? Do not point your finger and say, he doesn't know what that means. No, I am going to need a hand to decipher that last few lines. What does this mean? According to Newton's law of universal gravitation, the force of attraction that various bodies have for one another is directly proportional to the product of their masses, but inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. It's irrelevant what it means because it's a lie, because the moon does not shift the water. But this is what I mean. Now, listen, if somebody has got a logical explanation, but I mean an explanation, what does that mean? Broken down, not just, yeah, well, it means that, no. What does it mean? Because this is what I mean. When I read something, if it's out, I notice it because I can read, I process information. I do not know what that means. I might have to read it a couple more times and maybe something will click, but I have a funny feeling that it won't. According to Newton's law of universal gravitation, the force of attraction that various bodies have for one another is directly proportional to the product of their masses, but inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Just give me a piggyback on that one. But a proper explanation. For me, that's horseradish. And this is what I mean. How many people think that means something? The sun is about 93 million miles from the Earth. The moon, our nearest neighbor in space, is only about 238,000 miles distant. The smaller distance between the moon and the Earth more than makes up for the greater mass of the sun. Hence, the ocean waters respond particularly to the moon's gravitational pull. No, doesn't. In the diagram on this page, we assume this is the bulge bollocks. So I'm not going to go into it because I know it's crap. You guys know of the bulge. We don't need to go over it again. I had some lifesavers earlier. I think I'm just going to have a little bit of a... Hang on. All right, we're back. Remember, folks, this is important. So we've just done that, right? We know about the bulge. Here we go. We have already mentioned one of these factors, the fact that both the sun and the moon are pulling at the Earth. The moon's tide-raising power is greater, as we have seen, than that of the sun, yet the sun's attraction is strong. At the time of the new moon and of the full moon, about a fortnight apart, the sun, moon, and Earth are approximately in a straight line. The tidal forces generated by the sun reinforce those of the moon. We then have the spring tides when high tides are highest and low tides are lowest. Now, I told you I did it before. I'm doing it again because I did do this before. Now, I'm going to rub that out. You heard what this said. Folks, right here, right now, you need to pay attention to every single detail because this is what has been happening. You think you're being taught something, but you are not. Slam dunk, please listen, it's important. Now, what they're saying, sun, Earth, and the moon. Right. They're saying that because they're in line, it's the strongest pull towards the sun, right? Now, listen. Approximately in a straight line. The tidal forces generated by sun reinforce those of the moon. We then have the spring tides when high tides are highest and low tides are lowest. Why would this is just on top of everything else? You can understand why the high tides would be the highest. Yeah? Because of the pull. Why would they also be the lowest? Slowly moves. Why would we get the highest tide when they're in this position, and then as it drops, it will only get to here, right? Why would the highest tide, most of the pull, then lead to the lowest tide? The moon and the sun are still fairly close together. It's just another one. These are the minor details. I'm going through this now mentally, properly. I mean everything. And I will show you how much crap you're being fed, right? Now, I know what's going to happen next. What's going to happen is we are going to go to this position here. And what they're going to say, again, the same as the bulge one, that in this position, the sun is counteracting the moon's pull, therefore creating lower tides. Absolute garbage. What we have here is a 90-degree angle. Boom, boom. It actually says that, right? We've got the sun, earth, moon, 90 degrees. How, if the moon is pulling stronger than the sun, and the sun is pulling, why on earth would people believe that this gravitational pull is somehow getting a little bit rubbed out by this one? What would happen is we have an angle of 45 degrees, the moon is pulling a little bit stronger than the sun, so you would think that the pull would be, of course it wouldn't be as strong as when the moon's here, right? But the moon is here, it's pulling here, the sun is pulling there. You are going to get just over like a 46, 47 degree angle. The sun is not going to counteract the moon's gravitational pull. It's illogical. It's wrong. It's bollocks science. Right? Right. We then have when the moon is at first quarter or at last quarter, a straight line is drawn from the Earth to the moon, is approximately at right angles to a straight line from the Earth to the sun. The tides produced by the sun then partly cancel those produced by the moon. This results in the so-called neap tides, which is what I was saying when I meant slack tides, right? When the tidal range, the difference between depths at high and low tide is smallest. Rubbish. The sun is not going to counteract the moon's gravitational pull in any way. If the sun was up here, then they're working against each other. But right here, they are not working against each other. They're both pulling in their directions, and it means that you would kind of get a pull there. It's a fact. If you've got a strong lad there and a strong lad there, and they've got a rope going to there and to there, and it's somehow tied up, and you both pull together, what's going to happen? The rope will eventually, if you're strong enough, end up like that. And the pull will be an average. Look, it's rubbish science. So far, nothing to do with the moon. Right. Tides are affected by the distance of the moon from the Earth, which changes as the moon circles the Earth in its elliptical orbit. At perigee, this is another one. Excuse me, lifesavers, sorry, excuse me. That is the point where the moon is nearest to the Earth. The moon's tide-raising force may be 40% greater than at apogee. Please tell me, when you guys saw, if you saw this, you thought about this. The furthest away that the moon is from Earth is 406,700 kilometers. The closest that it gets is 356. So let's say that's it here, and then when it goes around, it gets to the closest. From 406,000 to 356. 50,000 kilometers. Are 50,000 kilometers closer, which is about what? A tenth? What's 10% of 406? That's 40,000. So about 12% of the total distance closer, right? Just 12% of the total distance closer. It's got a 40% stronger pull on the tides. Are you kidding me? Impossible. It's so illogical. So what are we saying? That if it somehow got to, I don't know, say 250,000 kilometers, another 100. what's that going to be? Like 120%. The number is wrong. It's rubbish. It's rubbish. It's illogical and it defies common sense. So far, what you have learned here about the tide, you may not believe me when I'm saying that it's wrong. It's a common sense thing. It's common sense. How can 40% increase in gravitational pull just by going from 406,000 to 356,000? It's only 12% of the total distance, but a 40% increase in its gravitational pull? I don't think so. It's no slam dunk. Right, where are we? See, today? Right. Another decisive factor is the declination of the moon, its position north or south of the celestial equator, representing a prolongation of the Earth's equator. As the moon journeys north or south of the equator, that is, as it increases its north or south declination, right? Oh yeah. So, as it orbits us, it kind of goes up, down the equator a little bit. It's 30 Earth diameters away from us, 9 meters at that size. What they're saying is when it does go slightly north of the equator and then south and then north and south, I can see it when the moon comes up and then it goes to about there and it slowly goes back. That's what they mean, right? That's what they mean. So, as the moon journeys north or south of the equator, that is, as it increases its north or south declination, the tides show various irregularities called diurnal inequalities. Rubbish. That's not the moon. Again, they're just irregularities. Knowledge, they're making up as they are going along. It's the details. 30 Earth diameters away from us. It's going slightly north and slightly south, slightly north, slightly south. Rubbish. Right. The declination of the sun is a much less important factor because, for one thing, it takes the sun much longer to travel north or south of the celestial equator in its apparent journey in the heavens. Tides are affected by the natural periods of oscillation of different parts of the ocean. This, Dan, is the bit where you were talking about oscillation. Look, I'm drop kick that oscillation out of the ballpark. Listen, right? This is nobody's fault. This has been going on since people were young at school. And this is why people are thinking there is logic in some things that are so illogical. It was sometimes impossible to work out why. The explanations with the solar eclipse and the light delay, what is it that I say sometimes? I've had about 4 or 5 explanations and they're all different and illogical, but people think that it's logical. This is why, folks, you're being fed garbage with a topping of rubbish. Tides are affected by the natural period of oscillation of different parts of the ocean. To show what we mean by these periods, let us suppose that we fill a basin with water and then set the water rocking up and down within the basin. The water will follow a definite rhythm depending upon the length and depth of the basin. The time it takes the water to complete an up and down movement at one end of the basin will represent the period of oscillation. Now, just before we go any further, that kind of thing, yeah? Pendulum, maybe water here, yeah. But not a body of water that is taking 12 hours. That isn't an oscillation, for crying out loud. The oceans contain a number of basins differing from one another in length and depth, and each with its own oscillation period. The force of attraction between the Earth and the Moon and the Earth and the Sun sets the water in these basins oscillating about a central point called a node, where there is practically no movement. Let me read that again. This is the thing. Every single word needs to be paid attention. If you miss one word, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. Please listen. The oceans contain a number of basins differing from one another in length and depth, and each with its own oscillation period, right? Each basin with its own oscillation period. The force of attraction between the Earth and the Moon and the Earth and the Sun sets the water in these basins oscillating about a central point called a node, where there is practically no movement. So hang on. The force of attraction between the Earth and the Moon and the Earth and the Sun sets the water in these basins oscillating about a central point called a node, where there is practically no movement. The amount of contradicting it does to itself, it's no wonder why what we see happening is happening, right? Tides will be higher in a given basin if the period of the tide is the same as the natural period of oscillation of the basin, so that the two will reinforce one another. They will be lower if the periods differ so much that they tend to cancel one another. Do you know what I hear there? Huygens, light propagated, and another wave comes from another frontrunner and reinforce each other after a while. The pattern. Seriously. The Bay of Fundy, for example, lies at the very end of a huge oscillating ocean basin. Here, the up and down movement of the water is the greatest. The natural period of oscillation of this basin is about 12 hours. First of all, 12 hours. But that's not oscillation. It's a slow-mo. I don't know what. That is not oscillation. And about 12 hours, which is very nearly the period of the ocean tides. The two periods reinforce one another, enormously increasing the range of the tides. This effect is even heightened because the upper part of the bay is shallow and narrow. The result is that the tidal range in the Bay of Fundy, sometimes exceeding 50 feet, is greater than anywhere else in the world. It is not any oscillation. And the Moon, I hope we have yet to find one single thing that makes sense. The result is that the tidal range, tides are affected by a number of other factors. Among these are the width, depth of the water subject to tidal forces, changes in barometric pressure, prevailing offshore or onshore winds, and the general contour of the coastline. Simon Dan, that is kind of what you said, but it isn't, mate. It isn't, right? Please, let's carry on. We're getting there, right? As a result of all of these factors, there are a great many different kinds of tides, varying in range from a foot or so to more than 50 feet. We can distinguish three main types. In the semi-diurnal, that's semi-daily tides, commonly found in the Atlantic, the two daily high tides are about equal. The low tides are also more or less equivalent. In the Pacific and Indian Oceans, mixed tides are more prevalent. In these, the two high tides in one lunar day may be about equal, while the low tides are very unequal, or else the situation may be reversed. What? Or else it may be reversed. When? How would a tide be predicted? If, um, or else the situation may be reversed. Or else. Pacific and Indian Oceans, mixed tides are more prevalent. In these, the two high tides in one lunar day may be about equal, while the low tides are very unequal, or else the situation may be reversed. I hope people are clicking. Finally, in the Gulf of Mexico, the China Sea and other places, we find diurnal, daily, not twice daily tides. Alternate low and high tides disappear more or less completely. There is only one appreciable rise of one fall of water in a lunar day. Because of the many factors that affect the tides, the observed times of high water do not occur when the moon is highest in the sky, but show a considerable lag, which differs in different places. Now, you did say the moon follows. Look, Dan, this is serious shit, right? Listen again. Because of the many factors that affect the tides, the observed times of high water do not occur when the moon is highest in the sky, but show a considerable lag, which differs in different places. So, anywhere is what they're saying, and it is what I have said. There is no pattern. They're telling you there is no pattern. What's that? But trying at the same time to make you believe it is a predictable science. Still, nothing. Was that fun? That was close. Oh, well, I'm surprised you didn't go arse over tip. Generally speaking, tides follow the lunar day of about 24 hours and 50 minutes. Where there are semi-diurnal tides, there will be an interval of about 6 hours, 12 and a half minutes between a high tide and the next low tide, and between a low tide and the next high tide. Listen, in some places, however, the tides seem to be based on the solar day rather than the lunar day. Now, excuse me just a second here. You are being given, we thought, an explanation how the moon affects the water on Earth. Listen again. Where are we? The next low tide, number 3. In some places, however, the tides seem to be based. Seem to. So you're not sure. Are they or are they not? We're talking about the moon and the tides. They seem to be based on the solar day rather than the lunar day. Now listen to this. In Tahiti, for example, high tide takes place at about noon and midnight. Low tide at about 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. The reason seems to be that Tahiti is at the node of a basin whose waters are set in oscillation by the moon. Since there is very little relation in the tide-producing force of the moon, in this nodal area, the waters follow the tidal pattern set by the pull of the sun. The worry is that people are not able to break this information down because this crap has already gone too far in people's minds. Let me read that one more time. See, when I see everything for what it is, and this The reason seems to be that Tahiti is at the node of a basin whose waters are set in oscillation by the moon. So the waters are set in oscillation by the moon. Since there is very little relation to the tide producing force of the moon in this nodal area, oh, okay, so it's not that, right? The waters follow the tidal pattern set by the pull of the sun. It contradicts itself in the first part of the sentence, says the moon, but then not the moon, and now we'll go for the sun. This is where the crimes are happening. The incoming tide in it, right, we don't need to listen to that bit. Listen to this. The tides serve as a brake on, I might throw the book. The tides serve as a brake on the rotation of the earth. Their friction on the ocean floor, particularly in shallow waters like the Bering Sea, robs the earth of its energy of rotation. This loss is very small. It has been calculated that it is only about 1/10 billionth of the total rotational energy of the earth. However, it slows up the earth enough so that the day is lengthened by about 1,000th of a second every century. Folks, now I don't know if people are so far gone that they're listening to me explaining this and they're going, what is he talking about? Because folks, if any of you are not picking up on the contradictions in terms and the bowls of horseradish that you are being fed here, it is going to be a disaster. Please tell me that you are picking up on this, because this is where the problem is. Simon Dan, you think you understand science. There has not been one single explanation of anything here. It runs around in circles for a bit, then jumps out of the box. You've been left with nothing concrete, not one single piece of information in all of what I have read would suggest. In fact, all it is showing is that the people who are writing these books are destroying kids' minds. Slam dunk. I'm hoping that some of you are picking this up. I know it wasn't your full book, but what else was I supposed to do? I should have probably opted for the more relaxing, shouldn't I? Guys, I need just We are at ground zero. We are at ground zero. Let me just read the speed of light one again. Is it? Oh, it's probably blown away. Just to reinforce one another after a time, that's how it's propagated. A second method is by means of the constant of aberration, which gives the ratio of the velocity of Earth in its orbit to the velocity of light. Folks, if you think you understand that, we're in big trouble, I said. We're in big trouble, yeah? Right. In fact, that's it. That was the bits. Now that, how many things? I just hope. What I am going to do, I will do a screen recording, right? No, I won't. I will film. There's about 4 or 5. I'm going to put a square and I will film. I will go, just real quick, and then you can pause it Then I'll go to the next one, stay there for about 5 seconds, and when anyone who wants to read them, just pause it as you want, so I don't have to wait that long. Read them. I also have one of the little memes, and on this meme, it is going to say that there is this thing where a sentence can be fed into anywhere, right, in a paragraph and mean absolutely nothing. But people, when you're reading information and you read this sentence, I notice it. I go, what the fuck is this doing here? But people aren't, because I don't think people are paying attention to the minor details. And it is the minor details where the explanations for things lie. That's where they are. You don't get it on the surface. It's always at the very last, where it's 3 meters by the minor details. This stuff never gets there, folks. 40%. From 406,000 to 356,000, it's about 50,000 closer, an increase of 40%. Damn. I hope this has been happening since they have just destroyed logic. You're thinking you're getting an explanation. You say things like it's predictable and the contours and the land, but it's not, mate. It's not the moon. Everything is suggesting a round globe. I don't think it is. All of the encyclopedias, I've noticed it. But where do you start? Where would I have started? But after our interaction the other day, when you said, well, we have a slight problem here, Paul, because it is one of the most predictable events, the tides, the moon. And I hope you have some logical explanations or some evidence. Your evidence, mate, it's not the moon, Dan. Nothing here suggests even once that it's the moon. It just doesn't. I just hope that we then have the spring tides. The tides produced by the sun then partly cancel those produced by the moon. This results in the so-called neap tide. It doesn't cancel. Slam dunk. It's almost like geometry, isn't it? Like I said, you've got one person pulling that ball down here, another person pulling the ball there. What they do is both of them are working together and they pull it this way. It doesn't counteract. Look, it's one thing after another. Folks, I'm going to post this. Please, this is important. If you think you've got it, you're not quite sure, give it another go. This is what life is about. You can't listen to half of the stuff and think you'll wing it. It's not wingable, folks. You either know what is being said, or trust of the innocent is the life's most valuable tool, folks. Was there something else? Yes, there is something else. What time are we on? 48. So we've gone over the 45. The last one I did went into 50 something. So look, it's this one, it takes time. And I'm so glad that I did it a second time. I just win it. But the sound was not right. But now, after I do this, I'm going to listen to it to make sure it's doable, make sure it's a rap. And then, that last time, yeah, the sound was off. I was going to look, my train of thoughts go. Right, look. The Stones. I finally had some come out. Right? Right, this is Petrified Wood. But they have come out as smooth as you like, sir. It's just like smooth like a baby's bum. And in the current climate, I should maybe have thought of different words, but we've always used soft as a baby's bum. No, don't throw anything at me. Now, this one is my Aussie flag, you know, the green and gold, but smooth, right? But they've come out so, took ages to get I just didn't think it was going to happen, but it has. So I've got quite a few more now. So today's been a good day. If you guys know what I was saying, it's so important. Look at that sun, look. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get a glass cabinet here. Because see, these are good for selling. So I've got to be my own sponsor, haven't I? But yeah, I might get a glass cabinet. So I get them all. They all have like a proper moon charge and a sun charge. Proper healed stone. The stones, they're healing, right? And one of the favourites, this one lost so much mass. It was twice the size, and it had 2 little holes in it. And I put it on the grinder, nearly got rid of it, and went again and went again, and finally ended up. But it's such a cool stone. This is probably the one I have a soft spot for. It's been in tumblers, all of its, well, since I've had it. Like some of the others go in and out and then go into another stage. This little dancer, right, get in the number 3 again, you little thing. But look at it. Cool. So yeah, happy days on this front. Now I just need to hear people understanding what I'm saying. And these were just rocks, you know, the rough, no smooth edges, nothing. So it has been worth it. 6 months later. Get that sun in that little hole there. There we go. All right, listen, folks. Like I said, I'm not the enemy. Never have been the enemy. I'm just hoping that people now see what I've been saying all along. And this is it, though. This is it. This is why. This is why when you know, like ask for explanations for something and I get 3 or 4 different ones and none of them are logical. And then you guys say, you don't know what you're talking about, but they're not even allowing you to string proper structured sentences together. Look, I hope, and are the teachers not aware of this? It's just been going on for so long. People have been thinking that the illogical is logical explanations for stuff. And then people like me come along and can see every single thing for what it is. And I can see that it isn't logical. And then the majority, the numbers of, you think I am the Dunning-Kruger. Nobody is Dunning-Kruger here. You guys are being fed 1 + 1 = 86. But you're being told that 1 + 1 = 2. Please, think about what I've been saying. If you've nearly got it, haven't, please watch this again. It's the most important post I have ever done. All right, folks. And by the way, this afternoon I'm going down with my telescope a la playa to the beach. I'm going to find something because as well, something else that has just, the pennies just dropped. Folks, flat, round. I thought, like, everybody's having a bit of fun, and you know, the flat earth, the round earth, I've only known for not long, year or two. I've been smashing the science, bang, bang, thinking, well, knowing that it's wrong, but not knowing that indirectly I am fighting alongside the flat earthers. I didn't even know it was a thing when I started fighting this science. So all of a sudden, I've come out of this tunnel and I find myself locking and loading with the flat earther charging at the science. Is it even possible that they have? I think they have, folks. I really do. So I cannot move on to the next step until I do my own research. Telescope with the phone. I'll take my phone and the bracket. You will see what I do. I didn't even know what I'm going to look for yet, but I am going to go in the next hour or two. We'll talk later, guys. Have a great, what is it, Sunday? Huh. All right, folks, laters.